About 5 or so years ago, I had a brief and very unusual encounter with Tamila. I was just walking across the courtyard to the store. I was walking across the street when I saw an acquaintance I had known long ago, a truck driver I had been with. I saw him standing by the cab of the truck, smoking. I came up and said hello. We had just got into a conversation when a young lady, about 30, came out of the doorway and strictly businesslike addressed me. "Why are you standing around? Payment is not an hourly rate, so there's nothing to pull the rubber. The faster you do it, the faster you take another order. Here, take this side of the box, there's nothing breakable here." "So that's not—" my friend, the truck driver who brought the lady's things, started to say. "I'm on it," I said with a wink to my friend, and deftly picked up a couple of heavy boxes, stacked on top of each other. I helped as much as I could. When I brought the last packages, the hostess was getting ready to pay, and then she was surprised to find out that there were not 2, but 3 forklifts, including me. "Well," the lady started to talk businesslike, "I was told there will be 2 porters and the price we discussed with the operator or manager, who you have in charge of this. So I'll pay, as agreed to 2, and if you have to, you yourself sort out how much. So I'm not a longshoreman, so you pay the guys for their work, and I do it voluntarily, as a neighbor." I answered with a smile, putting packages on the floor. In general, pushy lady began to find out how it was that I was carrying her boxes. When she realized that she had literally forced me to help, although I agreed to voluntarily, she began to apologize. It was just, very uncomfortable, because she began to offer me the money separately, then persuaded to stay for tea, to somehow compensate. Of course I refused money as well as the tea, explaining that the lady has a lot of things to do with the move. Since then we began to see each other quite often, now in the yard, now in the store. We even managed to get acquainted, so I learned that the girl's name was Tamila. I even gave her a ride in my car a few times when we were on the way. That's how our relationship became not very close, but almost friendly. At every meeting, the positive Tamila shared some nice little news and always smiled goodbye. And the other day I saw her again at the bus stop as I was leaving my yard in my car. I stopped, called out, asked her where she was going and if it was on our way. "Downtown for me," Tamila answered in her own special way. "I'm getting married. I'm going to pick out a dress." "Well, then we're going that way for sure. Get in." I lied about the way, suspecting that I can get another interesting story from life in my collection. "Thanks a lot. Otherwise I would have been in stuffy transport, shivering," Tamila said after getting into the passenger seat. "And now in comfort, like Cinderella in a carriage? Well, I hope that in gratitude you will please me with details." I immediately indicated my desire. "I wonder who charmed you so much that you're glowing. I've noticed that people in extreme states of grief and happiness are very talkative. One or the other just can't wait to talk. As the saying goes, just give me a reason." Tamila didn't have to be coaxed and begged. It was as if she wanted to share her happiness with the whole world. And I was incredibly lucky. Instead of just talking about the most wonderful and beloved fiancé, I got a great story about the infidelity that gave Tamila real happiness. I already had a fiancé, though, the kind of guy who is like for life. We met in college, we were both so ambitious, so career-minded. His name was Vitya. We started living together in our 4th year. We rented an apartment. Both my parents wanted us to move in with them, but we wanted to be on our own. Vitya started working part-time so we could afford an apartment, but my parents were still helping at the time. It was later that I realized that it was a mistake for Vitya to go to correspondence school and get a job. He would have been better off studying full-time. He got a job outside of his profession, and he felt the benefits of earning money. And his ambitions of the past dissolved away. He did, but I did not. That's how we graduated, as 2 managers. I was already looking for a better place to work before I graduated, with an eye toward career advancement. And Vitya didn't seem to need anything. It was as if he had brought money into the house, and that was enough. He kept saying, "Come on, get a job, get some money in the house, and then I'll move on to my career." But he was stuck somewhere as a manager on a fixed salary, and he was happy. After 2 years, I finally got a foothold in my job. Thanks to my parents, they had initially asked for the job. And there I revealed myself in all my glory. I studied well, not only in terms of grades, but also in terms of knowledge. All that was left was to gain practical experience. It took me only 2 years to move up one step in my career. My parents began to hint more and more often that it was time to think about the kids. And I answered saying, "I think about the kids. I think only about them." I will earn an apartment and everything in the apartment, and then I will get a position where they will wait for me from maternity leave, and then give birth. I was glad then, stupid, that Vitya understands me. He did not insist on childbearing, did not demand anything, and did not call to marry. I thought he understood that first it was time to stand firmly on his feet, and then I decided to celebrate my first success in my career by taking out a mortgage. The prospect, of course, long-term, but with stability. My parents tried to dissuade me, saying that if they needed a place to live, they would give up theirs, and they would go to their parents. I went to Vitya with the question about the mortgage. I told him directly that I had made up my mind, and that I needed you to nod in agreement because I was not only trying to do it for myself, and Vitya turned a blind eye. He started to think up thousands of excuses. He said that he was younger, and that his parents were elderly, and that the apartment would be theirs. I began to think about having a baby. At my job by that time, I had a lot of work to do. He said it was better to save up and buy than to get into bondage with a mortgage. In general, it turned out only that he was not going to participate financially in the mortgage in principle. I cannot say that I was offended, just somehow it became unpleasant that I think about our future more than he does, and myself began to collect money for the first payment. My parents understood that I was not kidding about the mortgage, so they decided to help in their own way, as they could. They moved in with their parents and offered to rent our apartment, a 3-room apartment, they said, from the lease of the apartment, the money in addition to the mortgage repayment, so that I would pay it off faster. Well, as I planned, I will rent a mortgage, and also all the money from the lease to pay off the mortgage. Well, I will leave some of it for the future repairs in our family nest. Oh, how angry Vitya got then. He said it would be better if we moved into a 3-room apartment since my parents are giving in and forget about the mortgage. Why do we need a new apartment on credit when we have a place for nothing? And we, they say, huddle together in a rented 1-bedroom with no room to spare. And no matter how much I tried to explain that my parents had not moved out for good, but that they would come back when I paid the mortgage, how hard I tried to convince them that they had their own place and it was good not to wait until someone else gave it to them. But I just kept dashing forward to my goal like a tank. Soon the talk about the 3-room apartment and my mortgage subsided, and our family was quiet again. Well, it seemed that way to me. I was working hard. I took some work home with me, even if not often, but began to go on business trips. I was even glad that Vitya didn't resent me for not spending enough time with him. He came home from work kind of tired. I hoped that I would realize my plan, that we would get married, get pregnant, and then we would start a real family life, full-fledged. From time to time I returned to the conversation about the time for Vita to start his own career, saying that the time had come. But he would only deny it. Then he said that once he was promised the post of department head. Then he started singing that soon my salary would be raised. In a word, it was obvious that Vitya was not going to do anything, neither with life nor with work. But I had hopes that one day the baby, our baby, would change everything. And then Vitya would want to change his job and build a career. He only muttered that it would be nice to buy a car instead of investing money in mortgages. What about a car? Vitya knew that I had been in an accident as a child. Nothing serious, but I developed a huge fear of driving. I even tried to overcome it once. I signed up for a driving course, but I could never get behind the wheel. And about Vitya driving. So if he wanted a car, he would have taken out a loan or saved up. I had a mortgage. I had no time for other expenses. And so it went on year after year. Things were going great, and I was already planning to close my mortgage and move to a new apartment by my 30th birthday. I started to think about having a baby. At my job by that time, everything was smooth and even with my career, and if anything, they promised to wait for me from maternity leave. I only had to wait about a year more, and that was it. Freedom from the mortgage and the beginning of a new life. In the meantime, while I was hustling and planning to celebrate my 29th birthday. Then my birthday fell on a weekday, so the main celebration was moved to the weekend. The cafe was booked, the guests were invited, and on that day, I really wanted to spend the evening with Vitya. I wanted to come home early from work, set the table, and sit with my loved one over a bottle of wine, dreaming of a beautiful future. Even though I know how to cook, I don't always have time, especially on holidays. So having left work a little earlier, I went to the nearest market, quickly walked through the kitchen and picked up all sorts of salads, chops, and other delicious things. I got some cheese, sausage, juice, and a bottle of good red wine. I took a cab and, happy and smiling, I was already imagining the perfect evening, which I had never had before. I went into the apartment quietly. What else could it be? I know that Vitya is at work. I hear the water pouring in the bathroom. I got really tense. I quickly took my shoes off and saw women's shoes standing there. Not mine. No one has a key to our apartment. Only the landlady has them. But she's not coming to bathe in our apartment, is she? I saw Vattina's sneakers standing there. I quietly took the food bags into the kitchen. I hear voices coming from the bathroom. One was Vitya's and the other was a woman's. Well, it's clear that it's not the faucet they're fixing. What should I do? Break in and make a scene? Sit and wait and then make a scene? Do I have to make a scene at all? With these thoughts in mind, I went into the room. The bed had been stripped. How disgusting. On our bed, on our underwear. With all my thoughts, I went out to the balcony and smoked. All I could think about was, can I forgive? Could I get over it? I didn't care who she was. I didn't care how long it lasted or if she was the only one. I didn't even care that it all happened on my birthday. Could I forgive? That's the big question. I won't bore you with all my thoughts, and I probably won't remember half of them. But I came to the following conclusion. If I ask for forgiveness, I will forgive her. For the first time. Why? Because I hadn't put my plan into action yet. I still have a year away from a perfect married life in my own apartment. A wedding, a future pregnancy, and a real family. With Vitya, of course. I even thought it was my own fault. I guess I really didn't spend enough time with my fiancé. I smoked one after another. Not even because I was nervous, but because I did not know what to do with myself. I came to myself when I heard voices from somewhere very close. Vitya and the young girl were so engrossed that they didn't even notice me on the balcony behind the curtains. I waited for the girl to leave so I could talk to Vitya. But after a couple of minutes, I realized that if I didn't identify myself, I would witness something that I definitely did not want to see. And as soon as Vitya threw his mistress, wrapped in a bath towel, onto the bed, I came out of the balcony, and immediately 2 pairs of surprised and, as it seemed to me, frightened eyes stared at me. Tamochka, it's not what you think. He got out of bed and tried to tie a towel around my thighs. Do you know what I was thinking? Calmly, trying to speak without my voice trembling, I asked. I guess, Vitya answered. And what are you thinking about? I think you bought a car for my birthday, drove it, and doused the poor girl with water from a puddle. Like a real gentleman, you offered to help her, provided her with a bathroom to wash herself and her laundry. Oh yes, while you were carrying the stressed-out girl to our apartment, you got yourself soaked, so you got undressed too, so you could wash up and put the clothes in the wash. And now I decided to give my new acquaintance a friendly hug, so she wouldn't have to worry about things drying for a long time. Without expecting it, I blurted out, "Kirill, who is this?" Suddenly came up with a girl. "Kirill?" Loudly and surprisingly I asked again. "And really, Kirill, who am I, huh? Is it your sister?" Immediately suggested the damsel. Vitya was silent. No, he didn't hide his eyes. He just looked from me to the girl. "Tamil, please wait for me in the kitchen. Give me 5 minutes, okay?" After a heavy exhalation, Vitya said, "Okay." I answered briefly and went to the kitchen. Vitya quickly escorted the girl out. I could hear him trying to explain something to her, but I couldn't understand the words. About 10 minutes later, he appeared in his home clothes and stopped at the kitchen door. "Would you excuse me?" he said, leaning against the door. "Do I have to?" I asked him again. "Of course you have to." "Otherwise, I would have asked you if you forgive me or not." As if with indignation, asked Vitya. "Will you apologize, Kirill?" I answered him question by question. "I will," shortly answered Vitya. We didn't manage to have a heart-to-heart talk. Neither did we manage to arrange a good party, which I had dreamed of. Vitya made excuses and apologized mechanically, without a soul, formally or something, and I thought about how we were going to move into our own apartment when I became a mother and we would live happily ever after. Literally 6 months after this incident, I began to raise questions and about the move and the repair and our future. I started hinting at a wedding and a baby. Vitya, as if he did not want to discuss it all, he limited himself to short answers. For example, about the repair, he would say, "Do it your way," or, "If you like it, why do you ask?" or, "You know better." He kept silent about the wedding, or confined himself to saying, "We'll see." We never really got to the subject of children. And then, when my mind was already in repair and choosing a date for the wedding, one weekend the doorbell rang. I thought that Vitya, who had gone to the store, had forgotten his keys, so I opened the door without even asking who was there or looking through the peephole. The very same girl was standing on the doorstep. I didn't see her for long, but I saw her more than once. I think I would recognize her from 1,000, even though she has a rather ordinary and unassuming appearance. "Hello, is Kirill home?" she asked in a childishly naive tone. "Kirill?" Somehow mechanically I asked again. "Well, yes, your brother." Just as naively continued the girl. "And you again to visit him? I hope you're not planning to kick him out of your apartment, otherwise we'll have no place to live." With these last words, the girl put her hands on her stomach, and then I noticed that she is quite a decent term. Before the free-cut blouse well hid the roundness, and now I saw... "Come in," I said sternly, stepping away from the door to let the unexpected guest in. "What's your name?" "Karina," she answered, taking off her ballet shoes at the entrance. "And you're Tamila?" "Tamila," I stated. "And how old are you?" 22. Looking into my eyes, Karina said, "In 6 months I'll be 23. "Let's go to the kitchen," I said dryly. I didn't have the strength or the desire to get angry. For some reason I felt so sorry for this little and silly girl. But who would pity me? Vitya swore that it wasn't serious, that it was over, that he would never do it again. And now Karina, who is sure that my Vitya is Kirill, is sitting opposite me at the table, greedily drinking her second glass of juice and trying to please me as her sister Kirill. I looked at her silently at first, and then I just said, "Tell me about it." I don't even know what I wanted to hear from her and whether I wanted to listen to her, but I realized that it was time to know everything about Vita, with whom I planned to tie my fate officially. From the very first words of Karina, I realized that she really wanted me to like her. "Tamila, don't think about it. Kirill didn't mean to make you angry." "Well then. He said he lived in his sister's apartment, who was against him taking girls here. But I'm not just a girl. We're serious. Honestly. We've been together for 2.5 years, but we had a little quarrel. I'm glad I caught you, though I was on my way to make peace with Kiryusha. But I'm sure you'll be able to influence him as a sister. After our meeting, well, when you were here, Kirill told me everything, so we only met here when you were out of town. Kirill said you were often away on business trips, and when you were in town, we rented an apartment for a few hours. And then I found out Kiryusha and I were having a baby. I decided to please him right away. And he said he didn't need a baby and that I should get rid of him, then we would definitely be together. And I tried. I didn't want to, but I tried, and I couldn't. I went to my mom's for a few months, and then I came back to the city. I have to get married so the child can have a father. And Kirill, he's not a stone heart. He'll see me with a belly and melt, won't he?" "So where did you two meet?" I asked when Karina was silent. "At the party." Karina answered contentedly, apparently deciding that the conversation was going well. "I rent a 2-room apartment with 2 other girls. We got a job here after technical school so that we wouldn't have to go back to our parents in the villages. It's not my profession, though. I hand out flyers or put up ads. It was my girlfriend's birthday and we were celebrating it. She called her friend and told him to take a friend for me and our 3rd friend. So I got Kirill. It was true love at first sight, you know?" "And it didn't bother you that he was older?" I kept asking. "It's only a year," Karina answered somehow joyfully. "So we were waiting for him to decide on the job, and then the wedding. Because of the army, he went to the institute late. Soon he'll graduate, and then he'll go to work. But what am I saying? You're my sister, you know." "A year older? A year older?" I couldn't help asking. "We celebrated his 30th birthday this year." 30? Karina asked me perplexedly. "Yes, and he graduated from the institute a long time ago and has been working for many years," I continued. "Really?" "Yes." With tears in her eyes, Karina asked me again. "And what about me? What about me? What about us? I have nowhere else to go. I do not know where else would have led our conversation if it was not back home Vitya. When he saw someone else's shoes, he asked me who our guest was. I just told him to go into the kitchen. Karina got nervous and even got up from her chair. While Vitya got undressed and reached the kitchen, Karina became even more nervous and started stroking her big belly. "Meet Karina. This is Victor, 30-year-old manager." Calmly, I said. "Victor?" With literally bulging eyes, Karina interrogated. "Yeah," I answered, getting up from the chair and heading out of the kitchen. "Well, you have a lot to discuss with my fiancé. I'll just wait in the bedroom." "Fiancé?" Already sobbing, Karina asked me after. Their conversation was fast and very noisy. Vitya yelled like crazy. Karina was crying and asking him for something. I missed the end of the conversation because I went out to the balcony for a smoke. When I went into the room, Vitya was waiting for me. I was no longer waiting for an apology or an excuse, but just stared at him, intently and silently. And then I asked him a direct question. Do you mean you don't want children in general, or specifically from this naive fool? In general, strictly replied Vitya. Here I got the whole bucket of truth poured out on me. It turned out that Vitya was with me only because it was convenient. I did not demand or ask for children. I did not drag him to the registry office. The house was a full bowl, and he had complete freedom of action in his affairs. And children, he said, were extra expenses and the need to get a second job. And he was fine as he was, without the extra hassle. We parted quickly. The very next day I packed my bags and left for my parents' house. And another day later I went to my tenants, the ones in the mortgage apartment, to tell them to look for a new apartment, since I would be moving in there myself. I was renting to a married couple without children, so finding them a new apartment to rent wouldn't have been a problem. I only found Sasha there at the time. His wife Sveta wasn't home. I outlined the situation and asked him to look for her right away without putting it off. Do you at least plan to rent a room? One room would be enough for me. I do not need two alone, asked then sadly Sasha. Alone? I asked him something surprising. Yes, Sveta and I are getting a divorce. Actually, it's already... Sasha answered. And I'm close to work from here, and I'm used to it here. So, are you going to rent a room, or will your husband be against it? I thought about it and decided that both the money won't be superfluous, and Sasha himself won't bother me. I promised to give him another 6 months, just before the end of the mortgage payment. That's how we became neighbors. Well, it was only neighbors at first, and then... Somehow everything spun imperceptibly. Courtship, romantic dinners. As the mortgage was paid, so I raised the issue of not paying for the room. That's when he asked me to be his wife. To be honest, I waited for these words from Vitya for a long time. But I waited from Sasha. But I didn't hurry this time. I said that I would answer in 5 years, and all these 5 years I will be trying to fit in. And so 5 years passed, and Sasha came again one day with flowers and with the proposal. So I'm getting married, which I am immensely happy about. What is it that you, Tamila, about my ex, how much you told, and about Sasha just a couple of words? I asked when my companion was about to get out of my car. Well, you can't jinx the past relationships, but the present ones, somehow mysteriously replied Tamila. Happiness loves silence. Then sincerely wish you happiness, Tamila, I said solemnly. I'm sure that you deserve your happiness. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Sometimes the path to true happiness lies through thorny paths of betrayal, lies, and cheating. But perhaps that is why the happiness received after difficulties is valued even more, and cherished even more. I want to believe that all worthy girls and women who have survived infidelity will find their true happiness, just as Tamila found it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video if you like it. Also put a bell so you don't miss new videos. See you soon.